Welcome to this video. In this video, we will be discussing about how do we use tools in the agent framework. So basically, the agent will automatically call the tool when a conversation requires it. For instance, this particular program, the user is asking, hey, what is the weather like in Portland? It cannot use the historical data, rather like it has to get the real-time data. In order to do that, it needs to make a call to the tool. The tool will get the current data and pass it to the agent. So in this two-step process, one, we have to define our tool. So in this case, I have defined a function called getWeather. It takes the location as the input, and right now like it uses the hard-coded values here, but in a production environment, rather like you will be getting the input from the LLM and like make a call to the corresponding API, get the results back and pass it to the LLM. Now we have defined the tool here and we need to register the tool. So when we create the agent, we have to pass the tool information to the agent so the agent can use that, right? So now let's go to the Visual Studio and execute the code. This is the typical code that we always uses except the tool definition and it's a registration. So we go in a loop, get the input from the user, pass it to the LLM and print the value. So now let me go and run the program. So this is going to be my 9th program. Let's run it. Let's pass the input. What is the weather like in Portland? So what the agent is going to do is that it will extract the city name and pass it to the tool here, the weather tool, and it will print the result. In a moment it will respond back to us. So it will be in this particular format, right? So the weather in this particular location, it's whatever is that, some random value that we are printing it, right? So now if I say like what is the weather like in London, this is not a real-time data, rather like it just uses the hard-coded value that we have, right? Just to demonstrate like how do we use the tool. So if you in a real world, so you will make a change here. You will make a call to the weather API, pass the information that you received and get the results back. That's how it works, right? Now let me quit this program. Let me play the console. Now remember, in this program, like we are using the Azure Agent client and pass the tool information. So this is a temporary agent, right? Now let's see like how do we create the permanent agent and use the tool. So in the program, we will be using the project client to create the agent. However, like we have not passed the tool information. You could technically pass the tool information. Rather, I wanted to showcase how do we use the chart agent and pass the tool information here. So we created an agent and we created the instance of the Azure AI agent client and pass that instance to the chart agent here and pass the tool information. So in our previous video, we have used the tool information in like when we create the agent, we have passed the tool information, but this time around we are passing it to the chart agent. Both are same. So whenever you have a Python tool, you can very well pass it to the chart agent. Rest of the program will be same. So we'll be going in a loop, asking the input from the user and pass it to the agent. Now let me go and run the program. So this is going to be the 10th program. Now let me ask the same question here. So we are creating a permanent agent. Now let me ask the agent, what is the weather like in Portland? Again, the process it's going to be the same, right? So it is going to return the same result or a similar result. Now let me ask the other question as well. So it is again going to be making a call to the tool and responding back to us, right? So now let me quit. Intentionally I deleted the agent. I don't want to keep any agent running. Now let's move forward. So far like we have discussed how do we use a single tool, but what happens like when you wanted to use a multiple tool, right? So here like this program we will be using 3 different tools: the weather tool, calculate tool, and there is also going to be a time tool. So the registration, it is going to be same. So when you create a instance of the chart agent, you pass all the tools that you wanted the agent to use it, right? So let's register the tool. Let me go and run the program, and let me ask the questions. So first we will be checking the weather tool. So what is the weather in New York? Then we will be making a call to the calculate tool. Then finally we will also test the time tool. Let it respond back. Now let me also ask the time specific information. So now as you see here, it doesn't have to be a single tool, rather like you can have multiple tools associated with the agent. Now let's see like how do we use the open API specification. So now let's assume that there is a open API published somewhere, and you want the agent to use that, right? Now we will see how do we use that. To do that, we need to use something called open API tool here. So now if you see here, the process again going to be the same here. So first you have to create a open API tool and pass the name and the specification. So specification, if you see here, we are loading the specification. So from this particular JSON file. So if you see here, I downloaded the open API specification. I kept it in this particular folder. This is my open API specification. So whenever we make a, like, these are all the functions it does support, right? So there are quite a few functions it does support. So the currency and the name information it does support. So now if I just go back to the OpenAPI specification, I just load that specification into this particular object and pass it to the OpenAPI tool. Now I have this tool with me ready. So authentication, if a OpenAPI needs any authentication, you can very well pass the authentication. But in this case, this particular OpenAPI specification or a REST endpoint doesn't need any authentication. So I'm just using the anonymous authentication here. Now we have this OpenAPI tool. It's just we just need to register with the agent. So if I just come over here, this is how you will register your OpenAPI tools here. So now let's go ahead and run the program. Let me clear the console here. Let me ask what is the name and the population of a country that uses the currency observation INR. So now what it is going to do is that it is going to use the tool, the OpenAPI tool, and it is going to return the result. So as you see here, it just returned India and Bhutan with all the information. So this is how you can use OpenAPI as a tool in the agent. Now let's move forward and discuss about the vector store. What I want to do is that I want to build an agent, use my own document to respond back to the user queries. So if you see here, I have a document about a London travel. So what I want to do is that I want to upload this document to the Azure AI Foundry, and then my agent should use this document to respond back to the user queries. So let's see how do we do that. So before I do that, let me quit this existing program. Let me clear the console as well. First, we need to create a vector store. So if you see here, I'm reading this file information and creating a data set here. And then once the data set is created, then I will be creating a vector store. Let's go to the portal and see how do we do that. So if you come over to the portal under the data section, data and index section, this is where we will be uploading a data set. Once the data set is created, then we will be creating a vector store that will internally create an index for us. So again, we will be using the project client to upload the file. Basically that will add the file into the data set, and based on which we will be creating a vector store. Now when we have the vector store, then we will be using a tool called hosted file search tool, right? So that takes the vector store ID. So if you see here, first I am creating a vector store. Now I have the vector store ID that I will be passing it to this particular tool. The tool again, it's associated with the chart client agent. So in our rest of the program will be seen. So if you just come over here, we are just going through the loop, and we will be asking some questions to the agent. With that, let me go ahead and run the program. So this is going to be the 13th program. Now I will be asking, can you provide the recommendation, right? So can you provide the recommendation? So let me copy that. Let me paste it here. Now let me enter that information here. Let me maximize this. So if you see here, first what we have done, we uploaded the file. And we received the ID, and based on which we created a vector store. Now the information, the vector store information, it's passed to the agent, and the agent will be using the same. So if I just come over here, this is giving me some places to visit, accommodation, transport information. So if you just come over here, you will see the exact information here. So if you go to the portal, you will see the index information here. If you click on that, you will see the file name here. So this is associated with this London PDF. And if you just go back and look at the vector store, you will see the vector store information here. It will populate in a moment. So if you see here, you will see this information here, right? Again, like this is also associated with the same file. And if you go to the agents that we created, file search agent, if you click on that, you will see the file that we uploaded. It's called a travel guide. Now let's go to the Visual Studio again. If you just, so you can use your own file with the agent. Now let me quit this program. Now let's move forward and discuss how do we use something called Azure Search. So basically, like this is going to be pretty similar, right? So in this project, what we have done, we have uploaded a file into the agent. This is okay, but then like at enterprise level, you want to use Azure Search. Basically, like you will be creating your own index for your own project, and then like upload all the relevant content into that particular index, right? So in that purpose, you will be using Azure Search rather than directly uploading your file into the agent. So now let's see like how do we do that. So before I do that, let me go to the portal again. So the management center, this is where like we have connected our Azure AI search. So this is the name of the search. So if we go to the search, go to the search explorer, I will be using this index, and if I look for a city something like Paris, then it is going to give me some information. So this is what I want to use in my agent. So now let's go back. So if we just come over here, what we are doing here is that we are using a project client, get all the connections, and then like we will find or filter the connection by type Azure AI search, get the connection ID. Now we will have a connection ID, and we will be using that connection ID to create a tool. So there is a tool type called Azure AI search that takes the search connection ID and the index name. If we just go back here, so this is the index name that we are using it here. Query type, when you create an index, you will be choosing the query type. Now let's go ahead and create the chart agent. So we just created a chart agent, passing the agent information here. Now we have predefined the user input. We are not going to ask for input, rather like we have predefined input. So if it says that find the detailed information about London. Like I think I have uploaded 5 different cities in my previous video. So like London, it's one of the city that is uploaded into the AI search. Now on top of the regular response, I am also trying to get the citation. So that means that we will show like which document this is coming from, right? So we will also try to display that information. Finally, we will say this is completed. Let me clear the console. Now let me go and run the program again. Now this is not going to ask the user input. The reason is that as said, like the user input, it's already hard coded here. So find the detailed information about London. So this will get printed here, right? So this is how you can use Azure AI search with your agent framework. We have this code interpreter tool. Whenever you wanted to write and execute a Python code, you can use this particular tool. So let me clear the console here. So if you see here, there is a tool definition called code interpreter tool that is part of this particular package. We can import, and then like when we define the agent, all we need to do is that we have to say equal to code interpreter definition. So which means that the tool will be associated with this particular agent. Go and ask the agent to write a Python program. If you see here, like we have a predefined user input saying like write a Fibonacci series up to n, and like we are passing n as a 10, right? Now with that, like let me go and run the program 15. So it is just going to take the user input and pass it to the agent. The agent will write and execute the Python and will return the result. So now as you see here, it does return the Fibonacci series for us. So now in this video, we discussed a lot about tools. How do we define the tools? How do we associate the tools? And how do we use the tools with your. To know more about tools, you can refer the Microsoft Agent Framework documentation. Not only for tools, but any specific topic you are interested in, you can always refer back to this particular documentation. And you can also look into the samples provided here by Microsoft. Time to time they will add or update the existing samples, so you can always refer back to this particular repo for any code samples. Like most of my samples are coming from this particular repository only. In the upcoming video, we will discuss about threat and the state management. Thank you for watching this video.